I stared at my phone, frozen. My credit card had just been charged for an international flight. First class. Total amount, more than my entire month's salary. My hand started trembling as the second notification popped up. Luxury resort. Booking, charged to the same card. I hadn't booked any vacation, but Emily had. My girlfriend. The girl I trusted. My phone buzzed again. A text from Emily. "Hey babe, don't worry if you see the charges. I'll explain later. Just a short getaway with my cousin. Love you." Cousin? She never mentioned any cousin trip. Right as that lie hit my chest like a brick, my screen lit up again. This time it was Instagram. And there they were. Emily, wrapped around John, the school heartthrob who'd been sniffing around her for months, boarding the plane together, laughing, champagne in hand. The caption under John's post, "Finally escaping with my queen. She deserves only the best." My stomach twisted. She swiped my card, she lied to my face, and now she was flaunting it online as if I didn't exist. My vision sharpened, not with sadness, but with a cold clarity. This wasn't heartbreak. This was theft. Betrayal. Humiliation. I exhaled slowly and opened my banking app. The charges were still pending. I called the credit card company. "Unauthorized transaction," I said firmly. "Fraudulent activity." After quick verification, the representative said, "We'll freeze the card immediately, sir. The transactions will be reversed once processed." Next, I called the airline. Calmly, I explained that I needed to confirm passenger details for a disputed transaction. They listed Emily and John's names. They had just taken off, headed to the Maldives. I smiled thinly. That's fine. They could enjoy their little paradise for now. But when it came time to return, there would be no flight waiting for John. I'd make sure of that. My name is James, 25 years old. Not rich, but not poor either. I manage a few small businesses my family built from scratch. Coffee shops, small restaurants, a few retail stores. Nothing flashy, but stable. Steady income, steady life. My parents raised me with one rule. Earn your own respect, never depend on anyone. I followed that rule religiously. I met Emily 2 years ago. She was everything I thought I wanted. Beautiful, outgoing, always full of energy. She worked part-time as a fashion blogger, constantly posting pictures online, racking up likes, compliments, and followers. I was drawn to her confidence. She was drawn to what I could provide. In the beginning, things were sweet. She admired my ambition, often telling her friends how I was building something big. I'd surprise her with little gifts, designer bags she adored, weekend getaways, expensive dinners. I didn't mind. I wanted her to feel special. That's what love is, right? Sacrifices, giving, providing. Over time, though, I started noticing the cracks. The way she talked about money. How she compared me to her friends' boyfriends who drove luxury cars, posted pictures from exotic vacations, wore limited edition watches. She never said it directly, but her eyes always lingered on things I couldn't or wouldn't buy. "James, you work so hard," she'd sigh sometimes, playing with her hair. "Don't you want to enjoy life a little more? Maybe aim higher?" I knew what she meant. She wanted more, flashier, shinier, bigger. Then came John. John was the kind of guy you spot instantly at any party. Tall, lean, flashy watch always gleaming under the lights, driving around in his cherry red sports car. His father owned a luxury car repair business, but rumors said the business was drowning in debt. Didn't matter to Emily. All she saw was the glitter. At first, Emily swore they were just friends. John would occasionally drop comments like, "James, you're lucky to have someone like Emily. She deserves the world." He'd say it, with that condescending smirk like he was waiting for me to fail. Still, I trusted Emily. Foolishly, I thought love could survive temptation. I thought loyalty was stronger than envy, and I was wrong. The change wasn't instant. It was slow, creeping like poison. Emily started spending more time working on collaborations and networking. She always seemed busier, always glued to her phone, replying to texts with a little too much secrecy. Her social media posts changed too. More lavish outfits, posing next to luxury cars I didn't recognize. Always tagging fancy restaurants I couldn't remember taking her to. The captions were always vague. Thankful for the people who spoil me. I confronted her once, asking if everything was okay. She smiled sweetly, kissed my cheek, and said, "You worry too much, babe. I'm just living my best life." For us. I wanted to believe her. So I did. Until that day at the mall, I wasn't even supposed to be working that shift. One of my staff had called in sick and I filled in, handing out flyers for a new cafe we were opening. That's when the first transaction alert hit my phone. At first, I assumed it was a mistake. A glitch. Then came the second notification, and then her text message, casually brushing off my concerns with that ridiculous lie about a cousin trip. The worst part? It wasn't even the betrayal itself. It was how casual she was about it. As if using my money for her secret vacation with John was no big deal. As if I would just sit back, accept it, and wait for her explanation when she returned. Like some loyal, clueless fool, I had given her trust. She gave me lies. When I saw John's Instagram post, his arm wrapped tightly around her waist as they toasted champagne before takeoff, something inside me snapped. The comments were flooded with praises from her friends. Power couple. Living the dream. You both deserve it. They were mocking me without even knowing it. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't break anything. Instead, my mind sharpened into perfect clarity. If they thought I was weak, they were about to learn how wrong they were. I called the bank first, then the airline. With every call, every confirmation, every frozen payment, I took back control, piece by piece. My emotions weren't ruling me anymore. Logic was, precision, planning. She wanted a vacation funded by me? Fine. She'd enjoy her little escape. But when reality hit, it would hit hard. I wasn't just going to let them get away with this. They had no idea what storm they'd just walked into. The days crawled by as I monitored the situation quietly. From my end, while Emily and John were posting pictures of sunsets, oceanfront dinners, and spa sessions, my plan was already in motion. The card freeze had already triggered their resort booking to fail. I received an email confirming that their credit card on file had been declined, and additional payment was required upon check-in. I smiled as I imagined the moment they reached the hotel desk, expecting a luxury suite only to be denied entry, without full payment. But that wasn't enough. Not for what they'd done. I contacted the airline again and requested the cancellation of John's return ticket. Since I was the cardholder who funded the ticket, they honored my request after proper verification. In his place, I booked that exact seat for myself. My plan was to be there, sitting comfortably, when their fantasy vacation came crashing down. As I waited, Emily continued sending messages, trying to sound sweet but increasingly desperate. "Babe, there's some issue with the hotel payment. Can you please call the bank and fix it? I promise I'll explain everything once I'm back. James, why aren't you responding? It's important. Please stop ignoring me, James. You're acting childish." Every message she sent chipped away any lingering emotion I might have had for her. It wasn't even guilt or regret I saw. It was entitlement. She genuinely believed she could manipulate her way out of this. Emma, who had always been Emily's quieter, more reserved friend, finally messaged me as well. "James, I just want you to know I never supported what she did. She lied to you for months. She's been seeing John behind your back since the start of the year." I responded simply, "Thank you, Emma, I know." She replied, "You don't deserve this." I didn't. But I was done being the victim. By the 5th day, Emily's tone shifted. The sweet messages turned to accusations. "James, are you seriously doing this? Do you think humiliating me makes you look strong? We're stranded here. Stop acting like a victim, Emily. You created this mess." John tried contacting me too, adding fuel to the fire. "Bro, let's be real men about this. Emily was unhappy with you. You can't blame her for wanting more, just let this go." The audacity. He acted like this was a mutual breakup. like he hadn't been sneaking behind my back, using my money to fund their little fantasy. I didn't respond. I let their silence fester, and then came the breaking point. The resort finally kicked them out when the payment couldn't be settled. They were stranded on an island, trying to sort out new lodging while borrowing money from whoever they could reach. Emily sent me one last message before blocking me entirely. "You're pathetic. You'll always be a small man with small money. That's why I needed John." Her words were venomous but empty. She was cornered, embarrassed, and desperate to maintain even a shred of dignity. I laughed when I read it. The same woman who once called me her entire world was now lashing out because her safety net had snapped. The next day, I boarded my flight back home in the very seat John was supposed to occupy. As I settled in, the flight attendant offered me champagne. I accepted, savoring the moment. The plan had worked perfectly so far, but I wasn't done yet. Upon landing, I received several missed calls from an unknown number. When I checked my messages, I saw that it was Emily's mother trying to contact me. Apparently, the reality of their financial situation was finally hitting home. It turned out Emily had used not just my card, but also maxed out a credit line she secretly applied for under her parents' name to fund part of the trip. She was sinking fast, dragging everyone. Down with her? I could have stopped everything right there, but I had one last card to play. I sent a legal notice to Emily's family, demanding full repayment of the fraudulent charges and unauthorized debts she racked up under my name. The total amount, including penalties and interest, was devastating. Betrayal had evolved from emotional to legal, and now there was no running from it. Emily tried to call me again, leaving tearful voicemails. "James, please, my parents will disown me. They don't deserve this. Can't we just talk?" I played the voicemails back once, emotionless. My sympathy was gone. My patience was gone. All that remained was justice. The betrayal wasn't just infidelity. It was calculated, prolonged, and heartless. She'd built her entire relationship with me on convenience while hunting for better prey. And now she was paying the price. The storm was only beginning for her. And for the first time since this all started, I finally felt peace. The following days were filled with silence from Emily. The blocked calls, the unread messages, the unanswered emails, all of it faded into a background noise I refused to acknowledge. Yet inside me, the war hadn't ended. At night, I stared at the ceiling, my chest heavy with emotions I couldn't quite name. I wasn't heartbroken anymore. That part of me had burned out the moment I saw her boarding that plane with John. But what lingered was something more dangerous. A dull ache that pulsed quietly beneath my skin, a bitter mixture of betrayal, anger, and emptiness. Every now and then, flashes of our past would hit me. The first time we met at the bookstore. The way her eyes lit up when she talked about our future. The little notes she used to leave in my apartment, saying how lucky she was to have found me. Lies. All of it. Carefully constructed lies. The realization cut deeper than any words she could throw at me now. I kept reminding myself that she never loved me. She loved the comfort I provided. She loved the lifestyle, the gifts, the stability I offered, until someone flashier came along. Then I became disposable, replaceable. Sometimes I caught myself wondering what would have happened if I hadn't checked my phone that day. If the transaction alert hadn't popped up, would she have confessed after returning from her little vacation? Or would she have kept the charade going until John was ready to replace me permanently? That was the cruelest part. She would have gladly continued smiling at me, kissing me, holding my hand, while lying through her teeth every step of the way. But I wasn't just angry at her. I was angry at myself. How blind had I been? How many warning signs had I dismissed? The late nights, the vague explanations, the unexplained expenses, the increasing distance. I saw it all, but I refused to believe it. I kept making excuses for her because I didn't want to accept the truth. That's what stung the most. Trust. Once broken, it leaves behind a hollow you can't fill easily. The legal proceedings moved forward while I wrestled with my emotions. My lawyer was confident. The evidence was airtight. The unauthorized use of my credit line, the forged applications under her parents' names, all carefully documented and undeniable. Even with everything going smoothly on the legal front, my mind remained tangled. The few friends who knew the full story tried to cheer me up. They said I'd won, that she got what she deserved, that I should feel proud of how I handled everything. But they didn't understand the hollowness that came after the fight was over. Winning doesn't always feel like victory. I started throwing myself into work more than ever, trying to drown out the thoughts. But even while managing my stores or attending meetings, my mind would wander back to those stolen moments, not because I missed her, but because I was still trying to make sense of how it all collapsed so completely. Occasionally, Emma would text me, short messages, mostly checking in, hope you're doing okay. Don't let them get to you. Simple words, but they helped more than she knew. She wasn't prying, she wasn't judging, she was just there, quietly supportive. Respected her for that. She had seen Emily's manipulation from the start, but never rubbed it in my face. Never once said, "I told you so." One evening, she messaged again. "You should talk to someone. Carrying it alone makes it heavier." She was right, but I couldn't bring myself to unload everything yet. I wasn't ready. Instead, I replied, "I'm okay, just need time." Her response was instant. "Take all the time you need." Meanwhile, word of Emily's situation spread quickly. Her parents were furious, not only because of the financial disaster, but because their family name was being dragged through mud. John's parents weren't any better off, publicly distancing themselves from him to avoid further scandal. Social media did what it always does. People who once envied Emily's perfect life now mocked her. Screenshots of her extravagant vacation photos were being reposted alongside the news of the lawsuit and financial fraud charges. She went from admired influencer to public disgrace almost overnight. And somehow, despite everything, part of me still felt sorry for her. Not enough to forgive, but enough to recognize how far she'd fallen and how deeply she had dug her own grave. One evening, I received an unexpected call. It was her mother. "James," she started, her voice trembling. "I don't expect you to forgive her, but please, is there any way you could show some mercy? The debt, the legal fees, we're drowning." I closed my eyes, my jaw tightening. "I'm not trying to destroy your family," I said carefully. "I just want what's owed to me. But she's still she was never who I thought she was." The conversation ended there. That night, I stared at the city lights outside my apartment window, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me again. I hadn't just lost a girlfriend, I'd lost trust. I had lost faith in my own judgment. I had lost 2 years of my life to a lie. And yet, deep inside, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I wasn't the same man who had once handed her my credit card without a second thought. That version of me was gone. Now I was someone else entirely. Just when I thought things had finally stabilized, a new problem surfaced, one I hadn't seen coming. My lawyer called me one morning, his tone serious. "James, you need to be prepared. Emily's attorney just submitted a counterclaim." I frowned. "Counterclaim? For what?" "She's accusing you of financial manipulation and coercion, claims you controlled her finances and pressured her into using your card. They're trying to paint her as the victim." For a moment, I was stunned. I shouldn't have been, but I was. Emily had lied so many times, but this was a new level of audacity. She wasn't just denying her actions. She was rewriting the entire narrative, turning herself into the innocent one who'd been taken advantage of by me. The man who paid for her luxuries. The man she secretly betrayed. "They're really trying this?" I asked quietly. My lawyer sighed. "Desperate people make desperate moves." I hung up and stared out the window for a long time. My pulse was steady, but my mind was boiling. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was war. Within hours, Emily started reaching out again. Not directly, but through mutual friends. "She just wants to talk, James. She says this has gone too far. She regrets everything." I ignored them all. Then Emma messaged me. I heard about her countersuit. Are you okay? I'm fine, I replied. But she's making things worse for herself. Emma sent a sad face emoji. She's spiraling. Everyone's turning against her now. Even John has abandoned her. I paused at that message. John? Emma didn't hesitate. He cut her off completely. Apparently his family threatened to disown him if he didn't distance himself. He's gone into hiding. Of course he had. The moment real consequences showed up, John bailed. The same man who paraded her around in photos now vanished like a coward, leaving Emily to drown alone. It would have been easy to feel satisfaction, but what I felt was something closer to disgust. She had traded everything for someone who abandoned her the moment things got hard. The next day, I received a letter from Emily's lawyer proposing a settlement. Essentially, they wanted me to drop the criminal charges and financial claims in exchange for a public apology and a small lump sum, far below the actual debt. It was almost laughable. I rejected it immediately. That night, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Emily herself using a new number. James, please, we need to talk. For the first time since everything began, I answered. Her voice trembled. I know I've made mistakes. I know I hurt you, but this is getting out of hand. Out of hand? I repeated coldly. Emily, you committed fraud. You stole from me. You humiliated me. And now you're trying to play the victim? Her breathing grew unsteady. I didn't want to lose you. I didn't know how to fix it. John, he told me you wouldn't fight back. I almost laughed at the irony. You picked the wrong person to gamble with. There was a pause, then a whisper. I miss you. I clenched my jaw. You don't miss me. You miss the safety I provided. You miss my money. You miss the life you could leech off of. But me? You never loved me. She broke into sobs on the other end. James, please. My parents are falling apart. My dad's health is getting worse because of the stress. I'm begging you. I closed my eyes briefly. Emily, you made your choices. You chose John. You chose greed. You chose betrayal. Now you're dealing with the consequences. Her crying grew louder. I don't know what to do anymore. Then, you should have thought about that before you booked that flight. And with that, I hung up. For the first time in months, I felt no guilt. Only clarity. The storm wasn't over yet, but I was finally standing at the eye of it, unshaken. 2 weeks passed before the court hearing. Every day felt heavier than the last, but I refused to waver. Emily's counterclaim had fallen apart quickly. Her claims of financial manipulation collapsed when my lawyer presented the detailed transaction history. Every gift, every transfer, every luxury she willingly accepted, and more importantly, initiated herself. But even as her lies crumbled, legally her attempts to play victim publicly continued. Her friends, at least those who remained, kept sharing vague posts online calling me controlling, vengeful, bitter. They didn't know the truth, or perhaps they simply didn't want to see it. John, true to form, vanished entirely. His parents had distanced themselves from him, refusing to get involved further. From the moment the legal charges surfaced, he cut all ties with Emily and her drama. She was left standing alone in the wreckage she had created. The morning of the hearing arrived. I entered the courtroom calm, steady, and fully prepared. Emily sat across from me. She looked nothing like the bright, glamorous girl I had once fallen for. Her skin was pale, dark circles visible under her tired eyes. Her hair was unkempt, her once proud posture hunched as if carrying the weight of the world. For a brief moment, I almost felt something, not sympathy, but recognition. She had finally come face to face with reality, and reality was merciless. As the hearing began, both lawyers laid out their cases. My attorney spoke with confidence, laying out the timeline, the fraudulent charges, the evidence of unauthorized credit applications, and the undeniable proof of financial misconduct. Emily's lawyer, however, struggled with most of their arguments. Disproven by hard evidence, his defense quickly shifted into desperation, appealing for leniency rather than innocence. The judge remained neutral, but I could see it in his eyes. He saw through the charade. The law was not on her side. Halfway through, Emily was called to the stand to give her statement. She hesitated for a moment before standing up, wiping her tears before approaching the witness chair. "Emily Summers," the judge began. "You are being accused of financial fraud, unauthorized credit applications, and identity theft. You may now address the court." Her voice was shaky, but she spoke. "Your Honor, I never meant for things to go this far. I made mistakes, but I was under pressure. I thought James would eventually forgive me." She paused, glancing in my direction. I kept my expression stone cold. "I loved him," she continued, her voice cracking. "But I was scared. I didn't know how to tell him I was unhappy. John made me feel wanted. He promised me a life I thought I deserved. I never intended to hurt James this badly." Her lawyer gently encouraged her. "Tell the court about the financial part, Emily." She swallowed hard. "I used James's card without his permission. I applied for credit under my parents' names because I was desperate to keep up appearances. I know what I did was wrong. I know I've ruined everything." Her tears flowed freely now, but I saw them for what they were. Not pure remorse, but fear of the consequences she now faced. The judge listened patiently, then nodded. To my lawyer. "Your response?" My lawyer stood confidently. "Your Honor, while Ms. Summers expresses regret today, the facts remain. She orchestrated a scheme of betrayal and fraud for personal gain, driven by greed, not desperation. This wasn't a single mistake. It was a calculated pattern of deceit that extended over many months." He paused before delivering the final blow. "Mr. James entrusted her with his resources and his heart. She returned his trust with betrayal, theft, and humiliation. The law must hold her accountable." The judge adjourned briefly to review the evidence. The courtroom sat in tense silence. Emily kept glancing at me, hoping for a reaction. I gave her none. When the judge returned, his voice was steady and final. "Based on the presented evidence, the court finds the defendant guilty of financial fraud, identity theft, and unauthorized credit abuse. Restitution in full is ordered, alongside damages and legal fees. In addition, the defendant will face a suspended sentence contingent on full repayment within the court's designated timeline. Failure to comply will result in immediate incarceration." The gavel hit the desk with a heavy thud. It was done. Emily gasped, breaking into sobs that filled the entire courtroom. Her parents, sitting behind her, buried their faces in their hands, their reputation shattered. I stood, collected my documents, and prepared to leave. As I turned toward the exit, Emily's voice rang out behind me, desperate. "James, please talk to me." I paused but didn't turn around. "James, I know I hurt you, but please. We were happy once, weren't we? You loved me once." Her words echoed through the room. Everyone watched, holding their breath. I slowly turned back, meeting her eyes one last time. "Yes, Emily," I said calmly. "I did love you, but love doesn't survive betrayal." Her knees buckled slightly, and her parents rushed to support her. As I walked out of the courtroom, I felt a strange sensation. Not victory, not joy, but peace. The fight was over. The burden was lifted. Outside, Emma was waiting. She hadn't attended the hearing, but had come to support me nonetheless. Her eyes searched mine for any sign of how I was feeling. "You okay?" she asked softly. I nodded. "It's finished," she offered a small smile. "You did the right thing." I exhaled slowly. I finally feel free. For a moment, we stood there in silence, surrounded by reporters and onlookers. But in that moment, the noise faded. Only clarity remained. "Thank you for standing by me, Emma," I said. "You didn't deserve what she did to you, James. she replied gently. You're stronger than you think. I smiled faintly. Maybe. As we walked away from the courthouse, I looked up at the sky, the clouds breaking, revealing a clear blue horizon. The storm was finally behind me. In the weeks following the trial, the dust began to settle. My life slowly returned to a calm rhythm that I hadn't felt in months. The court had ruled in my favor, but now came the real consequence for Emily: repayment. The sum wasn't small. Between the fraudulent charges, legal fees, and damages, she owed over $200,000. Her family sold one of their investment properties to cover a portion of the debt. The rest was placed on a strict payment schedule monitored by the court. Emily's social media accounts went silent after the trial. The once vibrant influencer who posted daily about her designer bags, spa days, and luxury trips had vanished into obscurity. Her follower count plummeted, and friends who used to envy her lifestyle quietly unfollowed her to avoid association with the scandal. Her face, which once radiated confidence, now carried the hollow look of someone completely drained by public shame. The girl who once mocked me for being small-time now stood at the mercy of every penny she once mocked me for carefully earning. John's situation wasn't any better. News of his involvement spread quickly through our business circles. His father's repair shop lost major contracts as clients distanced themselves from the scandal. Suppliers pulled credit lines, debts mounted. Eventually, John's father filed for bankruptcy. I later heard John had moved to another city to avoid the humiliation, working menial jobs just to survive. His days of flaunting borrowed luxury were over. But what surprised me most was Eva, Emily's close friend, who once fueled her greed. A few months after the trial, Eva contacted me, desperate. She'd racked up debts trying to keep up appearances during the scandal. Creditors were now hounding her, and no company wanted to hire someone tied to such public disgrace. Her message was short and pitiful. James, I know I have no right to ask, but I need work. Anything. I considered ignoring her. She was as responsible for Emily's downfall as John. But then, I remembered every insult she threw at me. Every time she mocked me for being a poor man. Every time she encouraged Emily to betray me. I called one of my restaurant managers and arranged a janitorial position. Low pay, hard labor. When Eva arrived at my restaurant for her first shift, I made sure to personally greet her. She walked in with her head bowed, unable to meet my gaze. You'll be assigned to cleaning. Bathrooms mainly, I said flatly. She nodded silently. As I watched her put on her uniform and walk toward the restrooms, I felt no satisfaction, no anger, just balance. She once looked down on the poor. Now she was cleaning toilets for them. Word spread quickly about Eva's job. Students who once watched her flaunt her superiority now deliberately visited the restaurant, using the bathrooms repeatedly just to watch her clean. She swallowed the humiliation, knowing it was better than debt collectors showing up at her door. Meanwhile, I focused on my businesses, expanding them steadily. What once were small coffee shops and retail stores grew into a modest but stable chain across the city. I invested carefully, not to flaunt wealth like John once did, but to secure my future. Months later, I received one final message from Emily. She must have used a new account to get around the court's no-contact order. Her message read, "James, I've lost everything. My family barely speaks to me. I can't find work. I think about ending it sometimes. But every time I do, I remember when we were happy. When you used to hold my hand and talk about our future. I wish I could undo everything. I would give anything to go back." I stared at the message for a long time, not out of pity, but reflection. At one point, I did love her. That version of Emily, before the greed, before the lies. But that girl didn't exist anymore. She had destroyed herself. Brick by brick, with every selfish decision she made. I had nothing left to give her. Not forgiveness, not conversation, not attention. I blocked the number without replying. Some wounds don't heal by reopening them. As for Emma, our paths continued to cross occasionally. She remained kind, respectful, and distant. She never tried to take advantage of me. Never used my situation for her own gain. She kept working her part-time jobs, saving for graduate school. Her quiet strength only earned my respect further. One evening, after running into her at one of my cafes, we sat for coffee. "You've handled, everything with more grace than I ever expected, James," she said softly. I shrugged. "I just did what needed to be done." She smiled. "You could have let bitterness consume you. Most people would." I met her eyes. "Bitterness doesn't rebuild your life. It just drags you down with them." Emma sipped her coffee, thinking, for a moment, "You deserve better than what she gave you." "I know," I replied simply, "and I will make sure I never forget the lesson." A few months later, Emma received a full scholarship to a prestigious university abroad. Before leaving, she visited me one last time. "Promise me one thing, James," she said before boarding her flight. "What's that?" "Keep your heart open. Don't let what happened with Emily harden you forever. There are still good people in the world." I smiled faintly. "I'll try." We hugged briefly, and she left for her new life. Years passed. My businesses grew beyond anything I once imagined. I opened several more stores, built a small real estate portfolio, and finally bought the dream house I once thought was out of reach. Emily never fully recovered. She was rumored to be living in a small town, working odd jobs under a different name to escape her past. Ava eventually quit the janitorial job, but never found stable work afterward. John remained in hiding, his family's once respected business long gone. As for me, I carried the scars of betrayal, but they no longer bled. They became reminders, lessons carved into my skin, keeping me grounded, focused, and cautious. Whenever I sat on my balcony, looking over the city skyline, I thought back to that first notification I received on my phone. The stolen money, the lies, the humiliation. It started with one swipe of my credit card. It ended with me taking back everything, and more, not through violence, not through screaming matches, but through calm, calculated justice. That was my ultimate revenge, and my ultimate peace.